I'm Jim Check. You're watching KelownaNow, and as special guest today, robotics. It's a cool kind of thing to be going on, and it's going on right here in the Valley. I did an interview with Brenda Bailey, the jobs minister, and she told me about your company, so I looked around and found out about it. So Sean O'Connor of Forage Robotics.
That's right. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for coming in. Just a brief of what you guys are doing.
So we're a team of about 60 people based in Salmon Arm, and we build robots that pick mushrooms.
Pretty sweet, eh?
Yeah.
Do you have that website there, Rommel, that you can put up? There you go. So that's kind of like a little bit, let's run it off your website there, right? So this little suction cup, I take it?
That's right, yeah. So we're solving this big problem where, the mushroom industry, it's like a lot of the rest of agriculture in the sense that they're facing a huge labor issue. But it's significantly larger than you'd see in any other industry in the sense that mushrooms grow at 4% an hour. So you pick them every single day of the year.
So they grow a lot.
You're constantly picking them. So your typical farm will have people in every day of the year picking mushrooms.
I feel like a mushroom sometimes growing in the dark.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're it's a great crop in terms of what its impact on food security. It's a great crop in terms of it's both good for the climate, and then also if there is a bad drought or a bad winter, it doesn't have an impact because it's all grown indoors in these big industrial facilities.
And it's kind of culinary favorite because it absorbs the flavors of whatever you do with it. It's kind of like got a non kind of flavor, right? And it's kind of like a tofu kind of thing. Right?
Yeah. So. It's also a great kind of binding agent. So I'm originally from Vancouver and have lots of vegan friends out there. Oh, yeah. And then I spent the last 6 years before I moved out to Salmon Arm to run this company in Saskatchewan. You have lots of friends in the cattle space. When I moved over to taking over the company in the mushroom space, it's like the one binding agent between the vegans and those who love steaks.
Oh, really? There you go.
Yeah, it's a important part of the transition to a more plant-based diet. But it's also, you see it constantly paired with a variety.
So maybe just we keep this running here so that the machines are actually going in and picking the tray. Do their trays moving, or are there just that many robots, or how does that robotic arm kind of like get to other trays?
Yeah, so in this farm, which is based in Abbotsford, is one of our customers down there, called Highline Mushrooms. We've got 4 robots in that room. So they're picking 24 hours a day, 7 days a week during the harvest cycles, which is every 2 weeks. And so the robots just go back and forth. And you'll see in the room, there's these kind of standardized, what they call Dutch rack aluminum shelves. So each stack of shelves, there's 6 shelves on it. And the robot goes back and forth all day, picking mushrooms only when they're at the optimal time to be picked.
So it has an eye on it, obviously, a sensor kind of thing that's deciding whether that mushroom needs to be picked or not.
That's right, yeah. So in the kind of the lighting board there you see on the robot, we've got our camera in there. And that was really one of the big breakthroughs we made over the last year is, it was very difficult for a long time, and you see these mushrooms are all in really tight clusters, just to be able to see exactly where the start and end of every mushroom is in a cluster. And so there's a lot of work that we needed to do with the camera, with the lighting board, and then with artificial intelligence to be able to separate each of those mushrooms to truly know which one.
You got to make sure you're picking it at that prime time too, right?
Exactly.
And then if it has some, I guess, if that one's like just discolored or has too much, it just kind of spits it into a different place or like
That's
waste or whatever, right?
Yeah, you got to sort by quality as well. And so you have all these fascinating challenges in trying to build a company like this in the sense that, one, you got to see the mushrooms properly, and you're right, then you have to detect, is it a good or a bad quality mushroom, and be able to determine if you should pick it or not. 2, when you see a whole bunch of mushrooms, you have to know, which one should I pick right now, knowing that they're all going to keep growing at a pretty high rate. So if you pick it too early, you lose a lot of the weight or the revenue you could get from that mushroom. If you pick it too late, they start bumping into each other, their caps open up, and they become waste products. And so you have this fascinating logistics challenge you need to be able to create.
So it's even kind of like boxing. It figures out the weight, I guess, when that box has so much weight, and then it just says that box is full and it moves on, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you want to make sure it's weighed to plus or minus 1% of the acceptable weight that the grocery store wants. And even things like how you're trimming the mushroom. Some grocery stores
it actually trims that bottom piece off.
That's right.
Dirt kind of off of it, right?
Yeah, they're very delicate. Like they're more delicate than a strawberry or tomato. And so when you go through the process of picking a mushroom, you need to make sure that once you place the mushroom into the box or into the little package for the grocery store, that it doesn't have to be moved again. Because if they have to be moved multiple times,
too much touching. Right?
That's right. They start bruising, and you'll see it. Its quality will go down.
I noticed. I used to cook in a restaurant a long time ago, and if you kind of like overhandle them, they kind of start to brown a little bit. Right?
That's right. Yeah, I even notice now, like at the grocery store, if there's a harvester who's new or hasn't kind of figured out how to pick mushrooms, you'll see the 3 inflection points on where they're touching. If they're putting...
they are very delicate for sure, right? Maybe we can just get rid of that screen now, Rom. So, artificial intelligence, robotics. How are you guys kind of? You can put that lower third back up. How are you guys kind of like developing that and continuing to develop that? Like, what do you guys do actually?
Yeah, we've got about 60 roboticist nerds hanging out in Salmon Arm who are building this company. We're growing really quickly, so probably adding another 10 to 15 this year. And effectively, we build the entire thing. So we have about 1,200 parts that come from around the world that we either machine ourselves or we work with other suppliers across the Okanagan. Assemble the robots. These are, again, customized, patented robots that we've been able to build. And then we build the ability, so software and AI, to recognize mushrooms, the AI to determine which mushrooms we should be able to pick, and then all of the logistics on once we pick it, how do we get it into the box, trimmed properly and ready to go to the grocery store.
You guys don't do any mushroom growing yourselves?
We don't. We've got a little facility where we make the world's worst mushrooms that I wouldn't recommend eating, but they allow us to keep
just
practicing.
Mushrooms at this time, or is there plans to do more than mushrooms? Or
at this time, just mushrooms. There's about $60 billion of mushrooms consumed annually. The majority of that are just regular white and brown mushrooms, and that's what we specialize in.
That's what most people are getting at the grocery store and stuff like that.
That's right. And then within that industry, you've got about 40% annual turnover of harvesters, because it's a very difficult job. Mushroom farms, they treat their employees really well, but the fact of the matter is when you go in to pick mushrooms, you're in those racks all day long, bent over, picking mushrooms as quickly as you can. That's not great for the back. It's bad ergonomics, and it's a difficult job.
So how much... obviously these efficiencies should lead to lower cost mushrooms at some point. So how much savings is there for, obviously there's an investment in the robot itself and the racking and all that kind of stuff. When do they, what's the payback and when would the farmer see kind of a return on that investment? Yeah,
the payback period is about 2 years.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And so if they're capitalizing it over a longer period of time, they're getting about a 30 to 40% savings in harvesting annually. And it's a piece that we love, and in an inflationary environment where everything seems to be getting more and more expensive, robots are inherently deflationary.
Yeah, that's what the technology. I've been preaching this for a while. Technology is our path to a better future, right? Where we should see deflationary things happening, right? We see that with electric cars, right?
That's right.
Tesla keeps dropping the price. People get angry about it, but you don't see too many car companies actually continuing to drop their price. But that's all about the technology, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Why Salmon Arm? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so the founder of the company, his name is Mike Boudreau, brilliant person who's in the automation and robotics space for a long time. He started the company there. And so when I moved over about a year and a half ago, the company had a really good foundation because of what Mike built. We had lots of families rooted there. And then, having now been there for a year and a half and working within Salmon Arm, we actually have a huge advantage in the sense that the previous company I built was in Vancouver. So it's called Grow Technologies. I was on the leadership team there. And we would have some software engineers come in and say, hey, I just got an offer from Facebook or Amazon. It was Facebook back then, not Meta. And here's what we're paying. But hey, I love what we're doing here. And I value my employee stock options, so I'm going to stay. And you'd have to say, don't. If it's that kind of money, if you're getting offered $250,000 to go work for Amazon, and you've got a family, you should go do that. Yeah. Whereas in Salmon Arm, as long as we compensate people fairly, we have a great culture.
Lower cost of living and a better lifestyle, right?
That's right. Yeah. We don't have the same amount of constant technology companies trying to come in and take the people that we've trained and built up. Where we can really work with them to build a lasting company.
And I think a lot of people just choose that lifestyle too that they wouldn't get in Vancouver. Right?
That's right. Yeah, you can be home in 2 minutes. We're a hardworking company.
There's a small lake there.
Yeah, exactly. You've got a beautiful lake in the shoe shops.
With a few people, you can probably have private beach all the time.
That's right. Yeah, no kidding.
You're not going to get a private beach in Vancouver, but.
And so we've got this, like of our 60 employees, I'd say almost 50 of them are not from Salmon Arm. And so we are constantly.
You've added to that community's kind of like economic benefit too.
Absolutely.
And so you must be one of the larger employers there too now.
Certainly the fastest growing, and the community's done an amazing job of embracing us too. Looking out for our new employees. I think Salmon Arm's a really friendly place, particularly for people moving with families to be able to integrate their kids into sports and school and the community, and we've been very fortunate how much the town of Salmon Arm has embraced our company. So
these people that work for you, the programmers, I guess that would be, right? And then you're using AI a lot are you using AI to do some of the programming now too? Like how much are you guys utilizing AI to kind of like further the company?
A lot. Like in a lot of ways, we are an artificial intelligence company embedded within a robotics company. When I think about our teams, we've got the team that needs to design how the robot should be structured. So that's the mechanical team. We have the controls team. They're the team that programs how the robot will physically move. Right. We've got our R&D and build teams. They're the team that are actually building these robots, working closely with the mechanical team. And then on the other side of that, we have the software team, which is largely just taking what the artificial intelligence team comes up with and then stitching it into the brain of the robot. And so, the future of our company and a lot of what we already have today is, creating unique artificial intelligence through both supervised and unsupervised approaches that allows our robots to continuously get better. And what it means by getting better is like already today we can provide more yield out of a growing room than human harvesters can. So that means not only are you solving the labor issue,
faster.
We're picking at the right time. So we're letting more mushrooms grow at that 4% an hour for
less
another
waste and stuff like that.
Exactly. If you let them grow for another 12 hours, that's 50% more revenue, 50% more weight for that mushroom. And so you get more food while you produce the same amount of carbon dioxide emissions, use the same amount of water and the same amount of inputs. So we're able to reduce the environmental intensity of the farm, replace this huge labor issue they have, and then also make them more profitable.
So a lot of people, when they hear the word robots, they think Figure 2, Optimus, and I'm sure you've seen all of those. And those are robots that are coming. But if you look at Teslas, those are all robots as well, right? All those cars, that's a fleet of, I think he's got 5 billion of those robots on the road right now. And then obviously in many auto manufacturers, there's robotic welders and all kinds of stuff, right? And now there's robots in food. And I think the robotic kind of thing is going to be changing over time. I mean, people have robots in their home that do carpets, right? Or whatever, sweep the floor. And then now I think I was at CES this year, and they have robots that cut your grass and all kinds of stuff, and painting lines on roadways and all kinds of stuff. So what do you see as the future, like 2 years out, 3 years out, as far as what we can see for robots kind of in our lives?
Yeah, I think, look, a lot of people like me have been professing that robots are going to take over for the last 20 years, and we're always wrong. Robots slowly enter in these areas like manufacturing you mentioned, or kind of simple tasks. I think that is changing now. So I think we're going to see a proliferation of robots across.
So are we at that hockey stick moment kind of thing?
We are at that hockey stick moment. And the reason I say that is, there's been a few breakthroughs, and the two biggest ones are, one is we can now reliably see what we're trying to see. So for the longest time, you're building these robots and you want them to be able to function in these environments, but they have to be able to identify everything they're actually looking at or sensing, whether it's a camera or other sensors.
So vision-based kind of like learning, because like, again, with the Tesla, when they went from software 11 to software 12, where software 11 was programming, and then 12 is all vision-based learning.
Exactly, where you have the ability now to properly identify things in an environment. That's all very new. And so having cameras that can do that effectively and be cost effective enough to put them in robots, that's something that is only a handful of years old. And the second piece is artificial intelligence has now gotten to a place where we can allow robots to process a variety of information and then come up with the right path and what they should be doing. I'll give a couple examples of how we do that. And this is happening across a lot of robotics companies right now. But when we first started, we would have essentially a software-based approach to deciding which mushrooms to pick. And the simple way to think about that is we just had a bunch of rules on what it saw and what it was, what was around it from a situational perspective. And then the rules would tell them which mushrooms to pick. And then we'd find out they weren't doing good enough, so we'd add more rules. And then they weren't doing good enough, and we'd add more. And we kept stacking more rules into this, and we didn't see any meaningful improvements. Human beings would always be better at picking mushrooms than we were in terms of optimizing which ones to select.
Decision-making kind of thing.
That's right. Yeah. So instead, we said, well, let's go find the smartest harvesters. And they sat down over the course of a few weeks and just marked up images over and over again saying, in this situation, pick these. We didn't create any rules. We just fed that pattern recognition.
Sounds a lot like Tesla, right? With the millions of hours of video, just fed the video in.
Exactly. Give it pattern recognition and let it learn. And so that's what's called essentially supervised learning, where we have human beings telling the robots how to learn on pattern recognition.
Right.
The cool piece, though, is you take another step forward, and the other big breakthrough that's happening in robotics, and same with us, is we can have unsupervised learning. So if the robot says, I see a bunch of mushrooms, and I think this is the tool that I should use, and I think I should pick at it from that angle, and instead of tilting, I'll twist, or I'll do that. And then it takes the mushroom and then says, did I properly get the mushroom into the trim fingers or not? And then it can feed that information around the world to all of the other robots.
That's the exponential learning, right?
Exactly. Right now it says, I learned something new that resulted in a successful pick. All of you guys, if you ever see something like this in the future, you should now use this method and this
I use
tool.
that analogy for Optimus. Like if one Optimus robot learns it, whatever other ones there is, thousands of them learn at the same time, and they're learning 24/7.
Immediately around the world. So
it's a neural network kind of thing. Right?
Exactly. You can have the smartest harvester's brain put in all of your robots at your farm, and then
no software to upload. No, they're just wow, impressive. I have Tesla's full self-drive 12.5 now,
right?
And it's no nag, so it's point to point, and it's pretty impressive. Like that a car can actually drive, and it's all vision-based learning as well too, right?
Yeah, like I'm a believer now that self-driving cars are significantly safer than human drivers. And
Tony Seba says 900,000 lives globally would be saved with Tesla's full self-drive a year.
And the challenge here is, I think the reason why we've struggled to adopt things like driverless cars, and we don't need to belabor this, but I think the reason is that it'll be 900,000 people saved, but it's actually going to be, so let's say I'll use numbers, made up numbers. Let's say 1,000 people today are dying from human drivers. I know it's much more than that, but 1,000 people today. And we're saying that's going to go down to 600 with driverless cars. It's not that 400 people are being saved. It's actually that 1,000 people are being saved, but then 600 new people are probably dying, right? Like as you change the construct, and the driverless car on bulk will save more people. I think the regulators just struggle with the idea of there will be times when a driverless car kills someone because of its driverless program.
That'll be a big event, and then
the insurance companies will have to get involved, and it creates complications there. But as a society, less people, I think, today would die if we had driverless cars.
Yeah, so robotics are becoming more and more relevant for sure. And then I think Figure 2 has a goal of putting a robot in your home at a price tag around $30,000 American.
Yeah.
And Elon says about the same thing. It's going to be less than the price of a car. I think the factories will get them first, right? I think, there'll be big orders for that. I think we're seeing that with the Tesla Cybertruck. There's a lot of police departments now trying to get them before the consumers are going to ever see them.
Right.
But I think the robotics in manufacturing will help in so many industries and lowering costs and improving efficiencies.
I think there's just a lot of jobs that human beings shouldn't have to do today.
Yeah.
Right. And if we can eliminate the jobs that are boring, that are repetitive, that are dangerous, we free up more human capacity and human capital to do things that drive society forward. And that's what we're doing. We are replacing jobs that are very difficult jobs.
Well, we're holding an AI summit here, first ever in Kelowna. We hope you're going to speak at it. Actually, I'm going to talk to you about it after.
Right on.
And it's September 27th here in Kelowna. We have Peter Diamandis, one of the headliners. I'm sure you know him, of X Prize, and he's led tons of innovation just being, started the space race really for private companies, right? And then a whole bunch of other things. And he's doing X Prize for, I think there's $100 million out there for trying to expand people's lives by 20 years. I think their goal is to get to 400 years old. I don't know how they're going to get there, but the goal is just 20 years, I think. And he's a really big believer in longevity. And then you look after yourself by the looks of it. And I think, the better we look after ourselves, obviously, the less we have to rely on the healthcare system too.
Right.
He's got one there for wildfire mitigation, which really affects us here in the Valley as well too, right? So innovation technology is probably our path to a better tomorrow.
I think so. And look, I love that you guys are doing a conference here on AI, because what I'm realizing now as someone who's building a company in the Okanagan and bringing people from around Canada is everyone wants to retire here. So if we can just find a path where they can come here 30 years earlier and do fulfilling work, do work that has a promising career behind it, like what a huge advantage.
And then if you look out the window.
Exactly. Like this is the place that everyone wants to live. It's awesome that we're now seeing companies that are, unlocking opportunities for people in software and AI and robotics.
And if we could even get some of those guys to work on some of the wildfire mitigation, that'd be great. Because I think the prize is to get early detection. I think there's a company in Vernon that's actually doing that. Genesis, I did a live stream with them.
Oh, cool.
They're doing early detection with cameras and sensors. And then I think there's another company that's working on autonomous firefighting with drones that can fight 24/7. Because right now, the planes are fighting during daylight hours and they go home at night and leaves the fire to kind of at its own. So it's like you catch up to it and then all of a sudden, you're back and, the fire burned all night long, right?
Yeah.
Spreading.
If we can use, again, the innovative people we have here and then lean into one of the big problems. So that is a big problem.
If you think about it too, like pilots, obviously they're at risk when they're coming down a hillside, whereas a drone could, hover and do whatever it needs to do and get more, just like your mushroom thing, could actually target hotspots because it would have sensors that would detect the hotter spots.
Let's go right after that spot.
And then probably map it out and say, let's put a guard here as opposed to, anyway, technology is the path forward. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you very much for having me. Look, I'm super passionate and excited to be building a company here in the Okanagan. Love that you guys are shining lights on some of us startups that are grinding away to create some cool companies here.
All right, and thank you for watching Kelowna Now.